Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. And please ignore the F-15 Raptors in the background. All the tests today were done in this Pilot Vanishing Point with a broad nib. And, yeah, the ink is Diamine Twilight, which is sort of a nice dark blue. It's not, I sort of don't know how to say it. It's not overly dark. It's a little more green than a navy blue, but yeah, it's interesting. It almost has a bit of purpliness to it. It's a strange ink. I kind of like it. This is my second sample. However, there are some problems with this ink. Let's look at the chromatography. As you can see, now down at the bottom, there's this pinkish purple thing going on, and then it goes up into almost like a greenish blue with the very bright colors at the side. But this color, it has actually dyed the rubbery sac inside, I think, 2 of my Hero 616s. And actually, when I had it in this pen, it actually dyed the plastic cartridge that I had been using. This test was a while ago, but it actually turned this pink, just like it did the sac in my Hero 616. But and I've actually heard stories of similar things happening to other people, so that's definitely something to keep in mind when using this ink. Anyways, moving on to the test. Top down in density, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. 15 seconds to dry, but you know, this was a broad nib and this is Clairefontaine paper. As you can see, there is definitely some decent shading going on. As you can see, there is sort of like a purpliness to it, but there's also kind of a greenness to it. It's very unique. Yeah, there's no sheen, no feather, no spread. But there was some freak bleed, which I think might be more the paper. So, yeah, the grain of salt. But yeah, as you can see, not the best water test. Most of it did wash away, and some of what's there is actually pretty nasty looking. So, next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. 17 seconds to dry, which I said question mark because Clairefontaine only took 15, but again, you get decent shading. Here you definitely see a bit of a halo effect. Yeah, I was really enjoying it. But yeah, so no sheen. There, the scrubby, I really scrubbed it in, so that was probably me. But yeah, yeah, no bleed, no feather, no spread. Again, not the best water test, really washed away. Next is Tomoe River, 19 seconds to dry. And because of the way this paper sort of makes ink pool, there is this really sort of beautiful, intense shading and a very pronounced halo effect. I feel like this might be the best example of when I say halo effect that I've seen on paper so far, that I might be able to catch on camera. Yeah, yeah, I really like the pen, paper, and ink combo. There was no bleed, no feather, no spread. This is a fairly dark ink, and with such a thin paper, echo might be something you want to sort of keep an eye on. And I feel like here is where we really see sort of that pink-purple base that sort of stuck around and all the blue washed away. So there is some that remains. Not a great water test, but Tomoe River loves to let ink just slide away when you add water, so I feel like on a sliding scale. Next is 20-pound copier paper, and this is probably the worst copier paper that ever existed, so using a broad nib I feel like is a little unfair, but 2 seconds to dry. Yeah, there's bleed, there's feather, there is intense spread. I feel like if you look at the line width here compared to here, you can definitely see how much it broadened. Yeah, I said maybe a finer nib would do better. Color explosion. feel like here we, again, sort of see what we saw in the chromatography, especially here up at the edges, where we see sort of this bright color exploding off of sort of this purpley bit at the center. So not a great showing. Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where, again, since this is such terrible paper, I feel like using a broad nib was just adding insult to injury. Again, we see that weird, like, sort of green and light, bright blue shooting off. But, yeah, 3 seconds to dry. Yeah, leaf feather spread. Really don't recommend using a broad nib with just about any ink on this paper, so... and again, the water test is just abysmal. It exploded. It's a mess. And Moleskine notebook paper. And this paper is actually from, I'll call it a modern Moleskine notebook, so it'll behave much more the way you ought to expect from any Moleskine you'll buy recently. Yeah, there's intense bleed, feather, and spread, and it took 6 seconds to dry, which is very weird. Yeah, definitely don't use a broad nib on this paper. But, yeah, it actually bled onto the next page. I mean, again, I would essentially not recommend using a broad nib on this paper with anything, but still, this was, I mean, that is intense. I mean, it's everywhere. That is just a mess. And the water test is awful, but, yeah, I say there's nothing good here. So, for your consideration, Diamine Twilight, actually, it's not the most well-behaved ink. I can personally attest to it having dyed plastic or rubber parts of my pens. But it's a really nice color, so, I mean, maybe if you don't mind it dyeing parts of your pen. And the thing is, I actually tried the 1/3 bleach solution, and I tried pen cleaner, and it didn't wash out. In fact, the bleach solution, and when I put it in the Hero 616, you know, to try and get the dye out of the rubber sack, it actually turned bright fluorescent pink. I would show you, but there's actually another ink in that pen at the moment. So, yeah, proceed with caution, and don't use a broad nib on the worst paper you can find, but I feel like that's self-explanatory. It's a great blue ink. Well, it's a great blue color. It's up to personal preference whether you think it's worth the time and effort. I'm thinking of getting another sample, and I still have a good bit left in here. So, yeah, for your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.